How good was that? Maximum drama. My thoughts immediately following the full-time whistle in the Gallagher Premiership final between Northampton Saints and Bath Rugby. I've ducked out of where I was watching the game to come somewhere quiet, a little park, not too far from Scotstoun, where I'll be watching Glasgow against the Stormers later. But oh my goodness me, yeah, maximum drama. And spoiler alert, well done Northampton Saints. 25 points to 21. That finished in an awesome Premiership final after what has been a brilliant Premiership season, and it was a fitting finale. The two best teams going at it, giving it absolutely everything. And I think the first thing to say is this game was another bit of evidence, if it was needed, to say red cards do not ruin games. It really didn't. A lot of people would have been thinking after, what was it, just about 18 minutes, oh, well, that's the game done then. Far from it. And that's not in no small part due to how heroic Bath were. And I really feel for them. Massively feel for Benno Urbano. I really feel for Sam Underhill, because my goodness, he put in one of the all-time great Premiership final performances. I haven't seen who man of the match or anything was, but I'm assuming it's Sam Underhill. I know they like to give the man of the match to someone who was on the winning team, but you've got to give it to him. He was unreal. Or him or Thomas DeToy. Both of them didn't deserve to be on a losing team. I'm also absolutely delighted for Courtney Laws. What a way to bow out. After all that time playing for one club, his hometown club, 10 years after he won the first Premiership, and he's still there on the pitch in his last ever match on English soil. Well, English, he may well come back and play in England, but his England career's over, and now his domestic English club career is over, and he goes out at the top. That's what the man deserves. What a guy. What a man. Absolutely delighted for him. Just delighted for the season as well. Brilliant advert. The Gallagher Premiership's been brilliant this year. Now, I said something, I'm going to say something at this point, which when I said it in videos earlier in the week, I think it got misinterpreted by some people, according to the comments, as some kind of criticism of Northampton or Bath. It's neither of those things. But any discussion of how good the Premiership has been has got to include the fact that 3 clubs went bust. And we're playing with a 10-team Premiership, which has been great. But we saw on the pitch, I think 8 or 9 guys that got absorbed from Wasps, Worcester, London Irish. And I just think it's worth just mentioning those clubs again, because there's a lot of fans of those clubs that would have been watching that game today. And, you know, bittersweet. Watching those guys that used to turn out for them, and being pleased for them, but obviously knowing that their club doesn't exist as a Premiership entity anymore. And what's more than that is, and this isn't a criticism of Bath or Northampton, but those two teams do not get to the Premiership final without the guys that they took from Worcester Wasps and London Irish. So I'm thinking of them. But what a final. Absolutely brilliant. Maximum drama at the end as well. I don't know, Bath fans, are you thinking that should have been a penalty to you right at the death? Knee was on the deck before Hendy ripped the ball. Final play. I thought Christoph Ridley and the TMOs had a good day, to be honest. And that was easier to tell by watching TNT Sport rather than ITV, because on TNT Sport they were not talking all over the TMO like they did on ITV, which is a little bit frustrating. So I flicked over. I was watching TNT for the most part. But what a game. Yeah, 25-21, and it was in the balance right until the very end. You couldn't ask for any more out of a final, and it had that gritty, tight opening 20 minutes, didn't it? But before we even got there, the entertainment was there. The national anthem with a children's choir. You'd have thought they'd have learnt after the Rugby World Cup. Don't do children's choirs, but they did one. Mind you, the national anthem is not great, is it? So it's hard to make that worse. You can butcher it when you're a kids' choir doing La Marseillaise, but not so much God Save the King. Anyway, game got underway. Both teams in their home strip, which I loved. Bath changing the shorts to make that possible. And then it was tight. It was tense. There was errors. There was massive defensive energy. 3-3 after 20 minutes. A drop goal for Finn Smith after he'd missed a kick. A penalty for Finn Russell after he'd missed a kick. So there were nerves. There was things not going to plan. Northampton were not playing their normal attacking play. The passes weren't quite on point, but that was partly because Bath were just flying in and smashing everything. And then Saints were doing the same when Bath had the ball. It was great. And then, obviously, we had that moment with Benno Urbano. No complaints about the red card, is there? I could understand it, and this is the only thing I thought is, if you were a casual rugby fan, and you don't normally watch, except for watching a Premiership final, maybe you watched a load of rugby 10 years ago and you haven't watched for a while, you would look at that and go, what? That's a red card now, is it? But yeah, that is a red card now. No complaints. I felt for Beno Urbano, and the worst thing, well, no, he's going to feel terrible now, but salt in an open wound could be the fact that he now misses the England tour. If he was going to be in Steve Borthwick's thoughts, he may now not be, due to the suspension, which would just be another kick in the guts for him. And then at that point, the game opened up, and you thought, right, well, I didn't think, oh, that's game over then, because I've seen enough games to know red cards do not ruin matches. But when you saw Tommy Freeman go in, and then you saw Ollie Slightholme go in, you thought, right, well, okay, they could put the foot down here. By the way, that Ollie Slightholme try, he did not mean that in the slightest. He was kicking it towards the goalposts and it went towards the corner flag. That's a rugby ball for you. If he meant that, then it's the most amazing trick shot ever. And maybe he is rugby's Messi, not Finn Russell. Yeah. So that was 15-3, and then that was the biggest moment in the game, I think. How were Bath going to respond? And the fact that they did bounce back and they did respond, and the Thomas du Toit try after a bit of pressure, that told you everything about the resolve of Bath. 15-10 half time, game on. Northampton were not playing as well as they normally do. It was not going their way. Spencer had been all over Alex Mitchell, who did not have a good day, did he? And we can talk about that tap penalty a little later in the game in a minute. So they were getting to Alex Mitchell, they were roughing up Finn Smith, and yeah, it was looking good. And Sam Underhill, Thomas du Toit, they had a couple of absolute warriors. Charlie Ewells was big as well. 15-10 half time, yeah. And then how they started the second half was going to be huge. And how it started was a pen to Bath, 15-13. And then Saints get the pen. Do they go back to a 6-point lead? No, they go for the corner, or a 5-point lead, sorry. They go for the corner. Then Sam Underhill ends up ending Berger Odendahl, just smashing him, sending him off the park injured. And then they got a scrum penalty soon afterwards, Northampton that is, but this time they took the 3 points. They learnt their lesson. Then there was another cracking moment. Will Muir, Hendy, who'd come on at this point, and the 6-2 split almost backfired for Northampton with the amount of players that were going off injured, but they had enough versatility with George Fernbank at fullback, able to come in at 10. But Muir chasing the ball all day like a dog chasing a ball in the park, and Hendy slightly out of position. Spencer with an incredible kick. He was so good today, wasn't he, Ben Spencer as well? In fact, just on the straight, if you just didn't know, if you hadn't watched any rugby this season, you said which one's the England starter, you'd go, oh well, that guy Ben Spencer, he's England's number one. The other guy, I doubt he's even in England's team. That said, Alex Mitchell had the big decisive moment at the end, but fair play Will Muir for that try. And then Bath are in front. And Northampton are asking themselves all sorts of searching questions. It's just not going right. And Alex Mitchell takes that tap penalty and then gives away, Northampton Saints give away the pen. And you're thinking, this is going to be Bath's day, isn't it? By the way, Thomas du Toit just casually switching sides in the scrum halfway through, and just Bath at one point scrummaging with 7 men and still going for scrum penalties. That was a flex. That was a flex. But after being the villain with the quick tap, and Hendy after being the villain for getting out of position and letting Muir in, the two of them combined. Amazing break by Hendy. Great support play from Alex Mitchell. Try time. And that eventually was the game. And just, it was so good to see Twickenham rammed. So good to see two teams just putting absolutely everything in. The defense, like I say, I've come away, the biggest thing is just the defence was out of this world. That's just cup finals though, isn't it? Yeah, and we saw it in the Champions Cup final as well. As much as you say, oh, you know, Toulouse and Leinster weren't their usual good attacking selves, that's because it means so much that finals rugby, the intensity steps up another level, and the people, there's 15 players opposite you, or 14 in the case of Bath, or Northampton opposite you. There's the opposition players trying to stop you from doing your job. So it can get, and it did get, very, very, very tense. It's been a fantastic Premiership season. I'll come back on the channel with more thoughts when I've had a bit of time to let the game soak in. But let's just bask in the glory of it. Congratulations, Northampton. I'm going to go and get myself sat down so I can watch the Leinster-Ulster game. Get myself to Scotstoun for Glasgow against the Stormers. So hopefully you'll hit subscribe, and see you on the next video.